Right, we have a special edition of UK Fans podcast. I am Dan, and I'm joined by
Chris. Hello.
who has just joined us, fresh off a plane or two from the Silverstone British Grand Prix. So, Chris, on a whole, how did you find the experience? Because obviously, this is a test pilot program in the UK, letting everyone in that's been vaccinated or has shown a negative lateral flow test. So from Friday, break it down for us how it was getting in and what it was like inside once you were actually in.
Well, I got there first day I turned up was Friday, and I'd seen the horror video of the 3-hour queue, so I was a bit panicking. So everything was nice and quick. Got in the car park pretty quickly. My brother, his 2-week window for the activation of his vaccine wasn't until race day, so he had to take a lateral flow test the night before we went. Because he did, I did one with him, just to sympathise. And we headed across to the entry point, and we're greeted by somebody that said, can we see your proof of vaccination? And as we're from Northern Ireland, ours is a bit different to what you have over there. You have a one of those little square QR codes on your NHS app. Yeah. So from Northern Ireland, we have a card that's got our vaccination stickers on it, date, times, and all that there. They decided to tell us that that wasn't acceptable, and that we had to do a lateral flow test and show proof. And we got a bit annoyed, obviously, at that point, because, and as I stated, there was nothing in their terms and conditions, nothing in their rules to say that our evidence wasn't acceptable, and that if I hadn't done a lateral flow test the night before, I would be in the poo, literally.
So it was kind of they knew what they wanted, but they didn't really purvey it very well to the public that was going in.
No, it was purveyed very, very poorly.
So did you see anyone else that was having any issues, like trying to get in, or because they were from the UK, they might have been a bit easier for them?
Because they're from the UK, they were able to come up and show the QR code and go through.
But once you were in, did you only have to produce this once, and then you were kind of like accepted? You would just got your pass, and then you were good.
Yep. You showed the evidence to the lateral flow test. All he did is check the date. And I'll say this: it's easier to fake a lateral flow test than it is to fake the evidence that we come from Northern Ireland with.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say on that, because you can so easily go onto the NHS site or onto the website and put in that you've had a negative result.
Yeah,
and that's
even if you haven't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's kind of flawed in that way then.
Yeah, definitely. But we went through the gate, and it's as if you're in a different world. There's nobody wearing masks. There's no big massive queues.
So obviously you've been to quite a few Grand Prix, including quite a few Silverstone Grand Prix. Would you say that this is it was back to like its heyday as it was pre-COVID in this instance?
No. When you come to like I don't know who's been there, who hasn't, but you've got like the village, which is in the middle of the new section, where all the teams usually have cars on display, and they'll have all their shopping area. All the cars, there was three cars on display, 4 cars on display. the Monaco McLaren, Lando Norris's usual McLaren, a Mercedes, and one of Sterling Moss's Mercedes. And they were all in big glass boxes. So there wasn't just a little sort of thing to go around and take photos from all different angles.
Which they would have had pre-COVID. It would have just been a little like tapered off section with barrier type
exactly.
thing. It wouldn't have been
okay. Exactly. And when you look at it at night, when you go there at night and look at it, it's like a snot box. You know, you can see where everybody's leaning up against the glass.
So not exactly COVID friendly.
No, far from it.
It's probably helped spread COVID, but
exactly.
So what other differences did you see, like in the grandstands and stuff like that? That was
There's nothing in the grandstands.
So when you were basically in just general admission, walking around the track, seating, all that sort of stuff, it was just like it was before. It's only when you kind of enter the village and the shops and the kind of manned areas that obviously have employees and stuff that the public go into.
But they're not even massive differences. You know, in the village you still had the esports, still had all their simulators.
Yeah, I really don't like them. I got beat by an 8-year-old kid. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah, I get embarrassed. I have to put all the assists on. They still had the pit stop challenge. They had the World Championship trophy on display, but again, behind a glass box. They did have a small little, they called it the 70 years of motorsport. And you go in and there's about 5 or 6 cars that aren't in boxes. And you follow a line. And it takes you back out.
Okay. So kind of like a one-way system, like in and out type thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like Mercedes usually have their own big area, maybe with a car on it and all their gear, all their merchandise. There was none of that. It was all the little tiny stalls that you get spread around the circuit. All the normal food stalls were there, you know, in the party area. You wouldn't know there was any difference. And the only thing you notice really is that every time you've touched something that then is someone else is going to go to, somebody else will quickly come and wipe it. That was the only thing that I could say you would really notice.
So they were kind of on it then.
Yeah, and there was hand sanitizer everywhere.
Okay, so on a whole, would you say that their experiment was successful? Do you think did you feel safe there?
I didn't feel unsafe. I felt like it was a normal Grand Prix to a certain degree, but you know, it's not until the days after that we're going to know whether it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Like I said at the start, you know, that we don't know who's gone in with a lateral flow test that's faked it, or come up with a negative test and has just bluffed it.
That is the thing. It's like you said, it's quite easy to fake. But obviously, once you get past the COVID stuff and you went to Friday, how did the fans take to the sprint qualifying and stuff like that? When you were sat in your seating area with all the fans, how was everyone? Was it a negative kind of atmosphere or excited atmosphere?
The build-up was excited because it was still the start of a race. You know, it didn't matter that it was only a 17-lap race. It was still the start of a race.
So there was still that kind of high anticipation that you get for the race when you see the cars going round to line up.
Yeah, there's that crackle in the atmosphere, and where I'm sitting, you've got them all revving up to go onto the grid, and then, you know, everything starts. But by the end of it, everybody was like, what the fastest guy isn't on pole. What's the point of this? And it was very, very, very well heard around the circuit. What was that Mickey Mouse thing all about?
So from a fan's perspective, obviously you were with quite a few of them. It was very anticlimactic, would you say, to what they were expecting? They expected it to be a bit more nitty gritty, a bit more everyone taking chances. Like we spoke in one of our previous podcasts, I think I said it's just going to cause people to crash and not end up with a car for the race.
It's not. It's not that everybody. The problem isn't qualifying. The problem is overtaking, and we can't do anything about qualifying until overtaking's been fixed. And it just seems they're targeting the wrong area. Qualifying isn't broken, and this to me just proved it. Lewis was the fastest driver on Friday, and Lewis was the fastest driver on Saturday, and he still didn't end up on pole, and that to me just isn't right.
Yeah, it is a bit of a fractured kind of spectacle in a way, because I'd admit, as a fan watching at home at work, I did kind of get into it, but by 17 laps I was like, right, let's go, and it was like, oh, like shit, it's ending. Like,
It's over.
Where's the rest of the race? So obviously that was like you said, that kind of was felt. The fans pervade their dislike for that quite heavily, by what you say.
The other thing fans were quite pissed off with was Friday, with qualifying being so late. It was such a long day for fans to be in there, and the temperatures were peaking at 30 degrees with no shade, and you were in there from. I got in the circuit that morning at 8 o'clock because you've got so much that you've got to fit in on a Friday morning. You've got to do your shopping, you've got the new museum, you've got all these things you want to do and get out of the way before you're sat in a seat for the rest of the weekend.
So what sort of time frame between obviously the last support race or supporting series or whatever to the actual qualifying for the sprint race? How big of a gap were we looking at? Like, as a fan,
they would break down event. They would break races down to sort of 45 minutes to an hour apart, and fill with Silverstone TV and Radio Silverstone. To try and keep you occupied until the next thing happens.
So realistically, they could have done it a lot earlier. Then, do you think they could have done that at 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock?
They said quite a while ago that they were doing it at the time they were because they wanted people to be able to get out of work and still get there to watch qualifying, or still get home to watch qualifying. And if you really want to give a damn about people watching qualifying, then run it on a Saturday like you've done it.
When nobody's at work. Well, the majority of people aren't at work.
If you want to run sprint qualifying, because the big thing people were confused about, and even I like to think I know quite a bit about F1, but I was confused by this, was they were going from P1 to qualifying to P2 to sprint qualifying to the race, and nobody really could figure out until quite late in the day at what point cars were going into Parc Fermé.
Yeah.
They were running a practice session, and we all sat and said this at the start of the practice session, because by that point, by P2, we knew the cars had been in Parc Fermé overnight. We were all sitting there saying, is there actually going to be any major running here? Because they've done everything they can do to the cars. All they can do is burn fuel.
Once they've set their car up for FP1, that's it. You've got what you've got, and that's it. You can't change it.
Yeah.
It is run what you brought. Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. That obviously even the fans were struggling to figure out what was going on, and you guys were obviously there, and you've got the atmosphere, you've got the information, it's all around you. Right, so jump forward all of that palaver. We get to the race Sunday. what was the atmosphere like at the start of the race? We'll get to the first lap incident in a minute, but coming to that race, knowing that Lewis was the fastest at the time and should have been on pole, how was the atmosphere around the track?
Nervous, but at the same time electric. You know, it was. I was sitting on Club Corner, and the grandstand to the left of me was full. The grandstand to the right of me was full. The grandstand I could see up at Stowe was full. The grass in front of me was full. And it was just electric. And the big thing I noticed amongst the crowd this year was there was a real lack of red. In all my years of going to Silverstone, there's always been a huge Ferrari following, and that wasn't evident this year. It was orange, and it wasn't Verstappen orange.
The British public is leaning more towards Lando then?
Yeah, massively.
As the future, because obviously, we are looking for the future. When you look back to 2006, and we had Lewis come through. Now, as British people, we're looking for Lando and Russell.
And George, when he qualified on 7th, Silverstone erupted. I mean, the ground was shaking. It absolutely erupted. More than when Hamilton would put it on pole. It was amazing.
And do you think that's because people are just looking forward to the future? Like, they're seeing what can happen. They're kind of living it, like watching it happen. Because this is the first time they've been back in a year.
Yeah. 2 races.
So it is a big one to have the fans back.
It was very pro-British. The support for the 3 British drivers was massive. And Danny Rick got quite a good following. But beyond that, you couldn't really see many other drivers being really supported. It was crazy. It really was.
So we've got the good part of the first build-up lap going around. Obviously, from where you were, you would have had to watch it on one of the big screen TVs that they've got going around, big, huge boards. What was it like when Lewis went into Max or Max went into Lewis?
There was concern for Max. Everybody knew it was a 180-mile-an-hour corner.
Max's camera shut off, so we didn't see anything. Like, it froze for about 5 seconds before they cut to another camera.
Yeah.
We didn't even know what had happened to Max until we saw all the replays. We had no idea what happened. Because they instantly switched from Lewis's camera to Max's, and when they switched to Max's, it just cut off.
The feed that we get at the circuit is what you see at home.
Oh, so yours was cut out as well, and you just had to wait to see what happened.
Yeah, it was broken camera, wasn't it? So
yeah,
they gave it a few seconds to get the feedback, and then weren't receiving it, so changed.
Did it kind of feel like, obviously I don't want to really get into it too much because it's a very negative thing for my sport, but did it feel very Jules Bianchi-ish when he flew into that wall?
No. There was concern because we knew it was a big one, and initially we weren't sure if Hamilton was in it.
Yeah.
And then obviously he came round and we knew he was alright. Then it was switched back. The red flag's out. What's going on with Max? And when everybody saw him get out of the car, the cheer went up around Silverstone. Nobody wants to see a driver get hurt.
Exactly. I think at times, I think we spoke about this before in another podcast as well. At times, you forget how dangerous it is because when they crash, they get up and they walk away.
Yeah. Like he took a 51G hit.
That's a lot. of G.
It is. It is. It's an awful lot. But when you look at the damage to the barriers, the tires had shifted across a little bit. You know, it's crazy, but I think the crowd were relieved that Hamilton was still going, and at the red flag, you know, everybody's mind was working. Is this car broken? Is the front wing broken? They'd come up over the radio. Front wing's broken. Pit now, pit now. And Lewis ignored them and went round, which turned out to be the right thing to do. And then the red flag, obviously, we saw Max go. We saw him taken off to the hospital.
Yeah, did he fly off in the helicopter, or was
there was a helicopter? There was a helicopter that took off from that area, but you know, there's so many helicopters in and out of that place on a race day. You don't know whether it's airport helicopter transport to the airport or to the hospital or not.
A celebrity.
Yeah, exactly.
Once that happened, obviously there must have been a rife debate between, was it Max, was it Lewis, was it both of them? You know, we said on a podcast last night when we recorded it, which is obviously going out just before this one, that at some point Lewis has to fight back to Max. He can't let him keep bullying him out of corners.
My words yesterday to my friend and my brother that were there was, Max has pushed Lewis too far this season, and Lewis hasn't bitten, and Lewis had to get his shoulders out at some point. There was a strong feeling inside the track that it was Max's fault. There was a very loud boo when Christian Horner's radio message to the FIA came up.
What? So do you hear all that through the tannoys and stuff? They give you all that, yeah.
Yes. So when you hear it, we hear it. I thought Michael Massey yesterday was outstanding, especially the way he dealt with Toto.
Yeah, his replies to all of them, I think, was quite. It was very neutral, very professional. He didn't favour anybody or any decision he was taking. It obviously, it's not actually his decision. It's obviously the steward's decision in the end of it. But if you think back to Imola and Barcelona, where Lewis backed out of those charges that Max gave him on, you know, where he basically done exactly the same as he done at Silverstone. He expected Lewis to give up, to concede and give him that corner. And like you said, you know, he's had enough of it now. And this is what happens when Max doesn't get what he wants. He ends up in a crash.
You know, I do say that. I believe Lewis had to get his elbows out. However, I believe Lewis did it at the wrong place. His tyres were cold. He was on the dirty side of the track. And Max should have left him a bit more room. Lewis, I believe, backed off because he was quite far up alongside Max. And then get front wheel to rear wheel contact. I believe Lewis backed off. But I put the blame at Lewis. I think the penalty was the right call. I was more worried that he was going to get a stop go.
Well, obviously, as you would have heard, obviously on the tannoys and screens and stuff. Obviously, Red Bull believed that penalty was an absolute joke. They disagreed with it highly. Obviously, as a Lewis supporter, I was like, it's a racing incident, and I'll be honest, I do still think it's a racing incident. You can't lay the blame solely at one person, because if Lewis isn't going for that, why is he racing? Why is he in a car? Why has he got a contract? You know what I mean?
That's what Senna's greatest words were, isn't it? If you don't go for a gap, you're not a racing driver anymore.
Exactly, but like we said, Max could have backed out of it. Lewis could have backed out of it. None of them wanted to back out of it because they're fighting each other for a championship.
I just believe it's the wrong corner they have done it.
It isn't the best corner.
You know, for Max to have gone into a 51G crash, that's what 8G less than Grosjean's fireball. You know, that's a bad crash.
Yeah.
And Lewis is experienced enough at Silverstone to know where you can put your car and when you can put it. He's got a lot more experience there than Max has. And at the other end of the spectrum, he's fighting the guy that used to brake and zigzag. We'll not mention Alonso. And the guy that would always put his place, and he said before that you can either hit me or get him away. So you can look at it either way.
We found out what side Lewis is going to pick. He's just going to collide with him because, like I said earlier, at what point does Lewis stop getting bitched out of corners? You know, he's got to fight back. He's a multi-world champion in this sport. He can't keep getting bullied by a toddler. Let's face it. By the way that they behaved yesterday, I'm fully convinced Red Bull is running a fucking nursery. But right, so we put all that out of the way. Everyone's happy. Max is not injured. He's gone to hospital. We've got the red flag.
Well, actually, we didn't know it actually gone to hospital. You know, we didn't find out until the end of the race. No.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't conveyed to the fans that he'd gone for medical attention. We were told that he'd been taken to a nearby hospital just as a precaution to be checked over.
Yeah. I was in my car when I heard he went to hospital.
I would have thought that would have been information that was obviously given to the fans, obviously being there and witnessing it, especially the ones that were on that corner.
On that corner?
Yeah.
No, we didn't find out about it until afterwards.
Fast forward past the red flag, and we got the second start in there, the atmosphere, going for that second start, knowing that there was a Ferrari on pole. How did it feel?
Everybody was confident that Lewis was just going to drive off. Nobody saw that he was going to sit there behind them. And the whole place went flat. And it didn't really kick off until Lewis started going for it. And when he started bringing that down a second at a time, then that's when the crowd started getting up.
So the crowd was like just in a state of just chill in a way, just waiting for something to happen.
No, they were concerned. You know, why can't he get past this Ferrari? This Ferrari shouldn't be this fast.
So there was actual genuine concern that Lewis was not going to pass him.
Yeah, and we knew there was the 10-second penalty coming.
Yeah.
And it was like, why aren't you trying to get past him and making a gap? Surely you can make a 10-second gap on this Ferrari. And it didn't look like he was pushing. You know, and he would come over the radio on my front right and what have you, but that's Lewis. He always does that.
Yeah, I genuinely don't believe Lewis anytime that he says his tyres have had it or his tyres are blistering.
I don't think Bono does either.
Because every time he says it, he whacks in a fastest lap.
Yeah.
So he's playing mind games somewhere along the line regarding that. So what was it like when Lewis finally got past Charles?
I've never heard a noise like it at Silverstone. Never in all the time I've been there. That was my 11th British Grand Prix. And I have never heard the crowd cheer like they did yesterday. It was mind-blowing. You couldn't help it. There was that release in yourself. You know, there's this pent-up anger that's been going on for the last lot of weeks. And it just all released at that moment. And it was just counting the laps. Let's just finish it. And when he went round on that last lap to win, where I was sitting, we were just round the corner from the start finish. And, oh man, I wish I could have that feeling every day.
Yeah.
But where I was sitting, you could see Parc Ferme, you could see the podium, and it was just in front of the field where Lewis came out with the flag, and you just can't bottle that. And it really annoyed me when Max Verstappen came out and said it was, what was it? It was pathetic of Lewis to be celebrating while I'm in hospital, which Lewis didn't even find out until he was being interviewed for TV.
Right, we kind of had this discussion on social media today, not yesterday, because yesterday was an appalling day for social media, which we won't get into too much. But there's no place in our sport for that.
There's no space in
and
any
it was
sport
sickening
for that.
to see. But you go back to when Grosjean was being barbecued, and we can joke about it now because it's happened. But was he not on a podium spraying champagne?
Yeah.
You've just won the Silverstone Grand Prix, which, along with very few like Monaco and such, is an iconic F1 sporting event. You're gonna be happy that you've won it. You're in front of, what was it, 140 plus thousand fans.
140,000 fans, especially in the manner that you've won it. Because I'm sure his heart sank at that with the 10-second penalty. And Valtteri, between you and... Even he flew past Lando. You look at it, he overtook Lando and he overtook Charles, both in Cop's corner.
And they both got out of the way. You can't not celebrate it. And to come online and basically slate the winner for enjoying their success and winning, when Lewis would have been told, he's okay, he's just, he's banged up. He might not have been told any more than that, because he did go over the radio and he did ask, is Max okay? They said, yes, Max is okay. And he got up and he walked away, quite winded, obviously. 51G, it's going to knock the wind out of you. But why should you not celebrate it? I just don't understand it.
No, absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason.
Red Bull were very bitter.
Lewis outdrove that car yesterday again. And Red Bull can't cope with the fact they ain't got a driver at Lewis's quality.
It's a very hard one when you've got Helmut Marko saying that he needs a one race ban. You've got Horner saying that he's a dirty driver. He should know better. But you've got a driver for the last 4 years has drove like an absolute bellend, and is only now people are getting out of his way because they don't want to end up in a £1 million crash.
Yeah, and how many times has Lewis said that one person he wouldn't want to be trying to get past is Max, because he wouldn't want to get knocked off the track?
You've only got to go back to I think it was straight between turn 3 or 4 or 4 or 5. They were banging wheels like side by side. Like, at what point do you give in?
Yeah, there was a similar maneuver in the sprint qualifying between the two of them, where Max got the better of him. I believe that was Cop's corner as well. Max isn't innocent in all of this.
No, but it's like I say, it's got to be a racing incident if it's involved like that. But obviously the FIA thought different. They gave him a penalty. He overcome the penalty and he still won. You can't really ask much more from a driver than that on a day, surely.
No. But this, after all of this, came the most ridiculous thing of the weekend. You've been to Silverstone, haven't you, for a race weekend?
Yeah.
Everybody goes on the track after the race. That didn't happen this year because of COVID safety concerns. But as we were trying to leave the track, everybody was so compressed that just to get some space, I had to shout out, I've got a sore throat and a cough. And I instantly got a 2-foot space around me. People were like, "Is he joking or what?"
But yeah, for anyone that hasn't been to a not just Silverstone but to any Grand Prix, um, it is a sight to behold, the leaving of the crowd. The only thing I've come close to seeing like it is when you see all the ants in like a wave. It's it's crazy, and especially when we were at Spa and we were up on the hill, just watching a sea of hundreds of thousands of people try to maneuver in the same way. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, well,
But that could have been avoided by putting them on the track and letting them spread out.
yeah, and then they would have dispersed in separate groups.
Yeah. Because every year I'm there, I'll go on the track and do a lap.
Like a 10-minute lap.
Because I love it. I love... Yeah. Well, I can still get around there faster than Mazaspin.
But Chris, he had a spin this week. He had a spin.
I know, and I'd said just before, I think the first person to do it's going to be him. But, on the commentators, oh my god, I think I'm bad with Paul di Resta when he says mediums. The commentator cannot get people's names right. Mazaspin, that was Mazaspin. Mazaspin. Roy Nissany, he was Nissany. Oh, there was too many to say. It was just, oh my god, my head was exploding.
Right, so on a whole, would you say this Grand Prix was pretty much a success, and we need to get back to opening up our doors to fans now?
Once we've let everything calm down and see if there's an aftermath, you're talking maybe 350,000 people over the weekend. So that's a lot of people. Even if, you've got so many thousand repeat weekenders, there's still people that only turned up for the Sunday. So we're not going to know anything for a couple of weeks. But if there's no aftermath, then yeah, there's a gateway there to start with. The drivers loved it, and Lewis performed because there was a crowd there. George performed because there was a crowd there. Lando performed because there was a crowd there.
It must be unlike, anything that they experience with no crowds there. I mean,
yeah.
As a driver, you must crave that atmosphere, that build up, that like expectation, and just everything coming to a climax for the race.
When you can hear or when you can feel the noise, they can feel it. Yeah, there's no way that's not going to get to you.
Yeah.
It's not going to drive you on. Like, everybody's Union flags were going mad.
It did look great on TV. It looked absolutely phenomenal. And
I can't wait to watch it again.
And obviously, as a British fan of a British driver, Lewis, obviously, if I thought he was in the wrong, I would have had to say that he was in the wrong. Unlike some certain other fans that can't hold their hands up when their driver's been an absolute bell end, you would have to, in this case, if you generally thought that it was not a racing incident. But that brings us to our close for this special segment from Chris, who has literally just got in from the Silverstone Grand Prix. Literally moments before we recorded this, I was badgering him for when he was going to be coming on because I needed to get it done. But I just want to say once again that this podcast is sponsored by Apex Tracks. That's APEXTRAXS.com for all of your 3D printed wall art. They have some amazing tracks available. You've got Spa, you've got the one we've been talking about today, Silverstone, Brands Hatch, TT Circuits, F1, literally anything motor racing inspired, these guys have got it. So don't forget to check them out. And I want to give another big thank you to Chris for joining us as quickly as he could after the Silverstone Grand Prix, jumping on in, doing this special, giving us at home an insight into what has been going on today, what F1's been dealing with, how they're overcoming, and what sort of challenges we're going to face in the future. So from me, Dan, I just want to say a big thank you.
And from me, it's cheerio, guys.